All right. So last week we left off where M was starting to get suspicious that maybe Ramakrishna was saying that he was an incarnation of God, or that he was hinting at it, and because of a few things that he had spoken about or said. And today it starts with him sitting in his room in ecstasy, of course, thinking about the divine beloved and getting ready just to share some wonderful things, no doubt. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on the steps of the southeast veranda of the Kali temple. Rakal and M and Hazra were with him. He talked lightheartedly about his boyhood days. Oh, that's an interesting thing, talking about his boyhood days. When it was dusk, he returned to his room and he sat down on the small couch. Soon he went into samadhi, and in that state began to talk to the Divine Mother. He said, "Mother, what is all of this row about? Shall I go there? I shall go if you take me." The master was to go to a devotee's house. Was it for this that he was asking the Divine Mother's permission? So we just get to see, that this is one of the really interesting things, I think, uh, interesting things, or how would you say it? I like the way that Thakur, God is so real to Thakur and so present to him that any time he was feeling confused or had a question or an unresolvable situation, you'll find him again and again in the gospel going to the Divine Mother for his solutions and getting responses. And it just shows that the Divine Beloved was not just part of his life. It was a huge, it was his life, and that he had an ongoing and continual relationship with the divine, conversationally, and I always wondered what that looked like. What does it mean to say that God answers or God responds, or when Brahmananda says it, or even any of the great sages and saints when they talk about it. And I finally got an answer. It was only this year that I read the sentence in this gospel, this book, where Thakur made that statement that in pure mind, or still mind, that which arises is the voice of the divine, is the voice of God. And so, if you can manage to get yourself to a certain level of purity, and purity here means removing your sense of me and mine from the mind, which interestingly enough means detachment. So stop referring to the concepts of your mind as mine, as me. Stop being defined by your thoughts, stop being defined by your thinking, and break through, become the observer of a mind. And that's how you remove me and mine from it. No longer consider the reports of the mind to be reports of your needs, but know that it's divided between its own needs and the needs of the body. That's primarily what it promotes. And that's why we have to sort out our identity as separate from the mind and understand that these are not our thoughts. They are just thoughts going through a mind that we are an observer of, and that they are not indicative of our state or of our needs or our desires. That it's simply a mechanical repetition of history, or of senses, or of old thought patterns. And so if you can bring the mind to that stillness that Eckhart Tolle talks about quite a bit in his Power of Now, that is how we get in touch with ourself, with the divine voice, with that knowing. And Eckhart Tolle also points to a couple of things that at that time, your infinite wisdom becomes apparent to you. That all the knowledge that you need to successfully navigate the moment perfectly is always spontaneously available to you in silent mind. It's not something you have to think about or something you have to query your mind for. this knowledge is different from that knowledge. That knowledge that we have in the mind always has to be queried. We have to ask a question, and the mind has to communicate the answer to you after doing a relational search in its database for that information. But the knowledge that's inherent in Satchit Ananda, that knowledge is spontaneously there as it is needed. It's a deep wisdom of our being.
Maharaj,
Yes.
that only happens in a pure mind, right?
Well, it's happening all the time. It's just that if your mind is not pure, you cannot distinguish it from everything else in the mind. You have all of your egoistic thoughts happening, and they will sound the same and probably be louder to you because they're more familiar to you than these subtle movements of the divine, which don't happen in language, really. Communication with the beloved is more about a knowing than a communication. It's not like you hear a sentence of mother and saying, turn left at the next right or at the next light. It's not like that. It's just when you get to the next light, to turn left spontaneously. It's just a knowing inside. And so mother, when she communicates, doesn't have to spell things out in sentences because she's not limited by time, space, causation, and neither are you when you've pulled your identity out of mind. Identifying with mind and its contents is what places you under the rule of time, space, and causation and relativity. That actually, when you just have to experiment with that on our own, But you do when you are able to break that addiction of living in mind. Several things will become apparent to you that are not apparent at all when you're in mind, when you're in ego space. So they're there within you. It's just that you can't recognize them or tell them apart. They are interrupted by egoistic thinking. Again, he spoke to her, perhaps praying about an intimate disciple. Mother, please make him stainless. Well, mother, why have you given him only a particle? Remaining silent for a moment, he said, oh, I see. That will be enough for your work. So this notion that mother, that we are not the doer, and really our egoistic presence is a delusion that we are God working through this mind and this body as such. And, the divine, in the sense of this guy, this person, this devotee that Ramakrishna is praying about, he wants this devotee to have a sparkling, a pure mind. And he prays, but the mother's not giving this devotee the pure mind. He's saying, well, why? Why have you only given him a particle of clarity? Why aren't you purifying his mind completely? And apparently mother told him, oh, that's all he needs to do what I need him to do. And so it's
Swami,
yeah.
that devotee is M, according to some I read other places where they say that's M.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah. So M was a householder, and with a family and such. And so mother gave him enough clarity to put this fantastic record of the life of Ramakrishna together, but still kept him in the world, still kept him working and running his family and his household, which he did a lot. So it seems like mother really in this incarnation was really trying to bring the two paths into a closer relationship in some ways. That Ramakrishna was a family man, and as such, he was married. And so his renunciation was absolute, but it was within a context that was not monasticism, that was not a monastery, that he was married, and he shows how to have a perfectly spiritual marriage, and showed that marriage is not necessarily by definition a hindrance or an obstacle, but that it can be a blessed relationship, a relationship that can be helpful to both parties if both parties dedicate themselves to each other's well-being each other's and places the well-being of each other above their own. That he really demonstrated that a divine marriage is worthy of God in that sense. So yes, so he's left a little seed of worldliness in the person, but is still using that person for her own purposes. In the same state, he said, addressing the devotees, that which is Brahman is verily Shakti. I address that again as the mother. I call it Brahman when it is inactive, and Shakti when it creates, preserves, and destroys. It is like water, sometimes still and sometimes covered with waves. The incarnation of God is a part of the Leela of Shakti. The purpose of the divine incarnation is to teach man ecstatic love for God. The incarnation is like the udder of a cow. The only place milk is to be got. God incarnates himself as man. There is a great accumulation of divinity in an incarnation, like the accumulation of fish in a deep hollow in a lake. This is wonderful here because, we always talk about Brahman and Shakti as being two different things. In our minds, we see them as two. And Ramakrishna is saying, no, it's really just a matter of state. They're really the same thing. When God is inactive, when there's no manifestation, we call it Brahman. But when that same divine is active, is in vibration, in manifestation, creating, preserving, and destroying, we call that Shakti, a different thing. And then the incarnation is actually within Shakti. It's God completely under the rule of Shakti, manifesting within the creation, his purest or highest self, available in a manifested form. And then you and I are and Maya is below our incarnation. The incarnation's in charge of Maya, but then we are within Maya. Maya is in charge of us. So that's frankly the big difference between you and I and an incarnation, is that there's a layer of Maya between us and Shakti. And with an incarnation, he is between Shakti and Maya. He is in charge of Maya. And so I was just reading that this morning, and in self-knowledge, just so you know that I'm not brilliant. So some of the devotees wondered, is Shree Ramakrishna an incarnation of God, like Krishna or Chaitanya and Christ? Gosh, we don't even get an answer to that. Turn the page and we're on a new day. So you just have to wonder. One of the beautiful things, though, about Ramakrishna is he gave us permission to think of him in any way that we're comfortable with. You don't have to see him as an incarnation if you in any way are bothered by that, or you're welcome to see him as an incarnation if that is helpful to you. He didn't make that the pinnacle of his existence, of his purpose. His purpose, as he just laid out, is to teach you directly between you and God, just to teach you how to ecstatically love the beloved, the divine. That's his purpose. And he didn't want to step in there and tell you exactly how to do it. So we see him in his message. It's very, very free, very individualistic. And he is there to help, as is the Divine Mother, the Holy Mother, in any way that you find helpful to yourself, to use their help, to use their insights. So Sunday, September 9th, 1883. Sri Ramakrishna had finished his midday meal and was sitting on the small couch. Rakal and M and Ratan were sitting on the floor. Ratan was the steward of Jadu Malik's garden house and was devoted to the master. Now and then Ram Chatterjee and Hazra passed in or out of the room. It was about 2:00. Ratan told the master that a yatra performance by Nilkantha had been arranged in Jadu Malik's house in Calcutta. Ratan to the master, You must go. The date has been set. Master, that's good. I want to go. Nilkanta sings with great devotion. The devotee, oh, that is true, sir. Master, tears flow from his eyes as he sings. To Ratan, I am thinking of spending the night in Calcutta when I go to see that yatra. Ratan, oh, that will be fine. Ram Chatterjee and the other devotees asked Ratan about the theft in Jadu Malik's house. Ratan, yes, the golden sandals of the deity were stolen from the shrine room in Jadu Babu's house. It has created an uproar. They are going to try to discover the thief by means of a charmed plate. Everybody will sit in one room and the plate will move in the direction of the man who stole the sandals. The master with the smile, how does the plate move? By itself? Ratan, no, a man presses it to the ground. A devotee, it is a kind of sleight of hand. It's a clever trick. Master, the real cleverness is the cleverness by which one realizes God. That trick is the best of all tricks. This is, he just made me think of Swami Prabodhananda, because here he's in the room and the conversation's kind of drifting away from God, going to a theft of the shrine of the sandals, and the mind is moving in that direction. And then just because of his nature, his love of the divine only, he brings the conversation right back, but in a very casual, very non-offensive sort of way. He doesn't stand up and put his hands on his hips and say, you guys, we can only talk about God here. What are you doing? Instead, he's just corralling them back. And I used to see Swami Prabhupada do that quite often around the dinner table when there were a whole bunch of guys sitting around eating, and the conversation would drift off onto Super Bowl Sunday or something. And Ramakrishna, Swami Prabhupada, so casually could always just bring it back with just a word or two, without any without any correction or anybody feeling like anything had changed. Really quite something. But the real cleverness is the cleverness by which one realizes God. That trick is the best of all tricks. As the conversation went on, several Bengali gentlemen entered the room, and after saluting the master, sat down. One of them was already known to Shree Ramakrishna. These gentlemen followed the cult of Tantra. The master knew that one of them indulged in immoral acts in the name of religion. The Tantra rituals, under certain conditions, allow the mixing of men and women devotees, but Shree Ramakrishna regarded all women, even prostitutes, as manifestations of the Divine Mother. He addressed them all as Mother, and this was his recommendation to his male, we'll say male and lesbian devotees, to see all women as the Divine Mother, and so to really treat them that way and to take away that sexual idea there. And so for the women, he would say the same thing to, I guess, women and his gay men in the audience, that to see men as father or brother, and to do the same to try and neutralize that sexual idea or interpretation. If we interpret ourselves as being sexual beings, then we'll see everything sexually. That's the nature of mind. Whatever you color the mind with, whatever information you put in there, that's what the mind becomes for you. And so if you define yourself or feel defined as a certain whatever, the mind takes on that color. But but whether you submit to it, whether you give into it, is up to you. Whether you leave it that color or not. He tells that story about the dyes and dipping a cloth into the bucket, and it comes out whatever color the person asked the dyer to make it. And then that final person that comes, the guy that's been watching all this go on, he sees these different colors coming out of the same bucket. So when it gets to his turn, and the guy asks him, well, what color do you want your cloth? He says, "Oh, I want it to the color that's in the bucket. I don't want it in any particular color." Now, see, this is a great clue. Normally, we just stop with that idea of the mind taking whatever color you give it. But actually, there's a lot of teaching in the man who asked for the color that's in the bucket. Because how did he do that? You remove ego, you take out your own preference, and you don't use the mind to serve your own preferences, your own likes and dislikes. But you observe the mind neutrally, knowing that it is not you, removing the ego space, and then you have a direct line to the divine, as it were. I want the color that's in the bucket. I want the color of my own self, my own true nature. I don't want to interpret and create an ego self. I want this to be what it is. I want it to be pure love, pure wisdom, and pure being. I don't want any twists to it. Master with a smile.
Swami,
Yes,
may I make a 1-minute comment?
sure.
Yes, because you know that I grew up as a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Bible, Jesus said, in heaven, there is not any marriage.
That's correct.
There's not any male or female in heaven.
That's correct.
And the other comment is, when you mentioned something that I did not realize, that Ramakrishna was a householder.
Yes.
So when did he become a renunciate
He was always a renunciate.
and a householder?
Yes. Yes. He's a householder in the sense that he had a wife, but he's a renunciate in the sense that they never consummated the marriage. And
I see. I did not know.
And
Yeah.
he also took formal monastic vows from his teacher Tota Puri.
Who is
Yeah.
this speaking?
This is Greg.
Okay.
Greg was
Yeah.
also a monk back in
This
the
is
day.
Stephen.
Hi,
Stephen.
Steve. Yeah. So Sri Ramakrishna was married. They never consummated the marriage. As he got more and more deeply into his sadhana, he met a wandering monk named Tota Puri and took sannyas vows, which is the final monastic vows from him. So in a sense, he was everything.
So would it be fair to say that very few householders, in other words, people who have married and consummated their marriage, that they could not be a householder and a renunciate simultaneously?
Well, there's some teachings on that. We're all renunciates. He says the difference between the renunciation of a householder and a monastic is the monastic's renunciation is external. We basically move into a monastery, isolate ourselves from the world, and are very careful about what we present to ourselves. A householder, he says, you have to renounce mentally, so your discipline comes from within. But you have to be there. You have to serve your children as you turn your love of your children into a love of God through your children. You turn your service of your children into an offering to the beloved by serving your children. You treat your wife as divine, and she treats you as divine. It can only work, when the two partners are in full agreement and in step with one another. But we're all called to renunciation. We all want to renounce things that are not helpful to us, But there's allowances, unique to the householder life. So that you can make your progress through that path if you're not able or willing to renounce externally.
So would it be fair to say that, because again, I've read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. When I was in my 20s, I started college as a religion major. And so for 2 years, I was a religion major. And I read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. And so would it be, because I have this Christian culture and Christian history, would it be appropriate to say to be a householder and a renunciant, it's not really the sexual act, but it's the narrow gate that Jesus talks about.
Well, the narrow gate that Jesus talks about is just reaching realization. I mean, coming to know God.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, it's the narrow gate is what we're all shooting for. Straight is the way, and narrow is the gate that leads to life, and few be there that find it. You know, most people are pulled out of their quest for God by simple pleasures and desires in the world, and get entangled in the world. Get entangled in their identities as ego selves and begin to serve that entity, that ego self. And that's how selfishness manifests and all the vices manifest. So narrow gate is finding the way out of egoism, finding the way to the kingdom of God that is within the heart. You know, that's within you. That's the narrow gate. All of us are looking for that. And but I think the end word in this is that whether you're a householder or a monk is not really the issue or the important thing. It's your love for the divine and your desire to know the divine and to manifest the divine purely that is important. And that there are two paths for doing that. You can take the path of the householder and do that. And you can take the path of the monk and do that. And it's really according to your movement toward God, where you are in that process. If you're able to renounce, hearth and home, then by all means do that. It's your time to do that, and that's appropriate for your relationship with God. If you're not able to do that, like what St. Paul says, St. Paul said, I wish that all were like me, but it's better to get married than to burn. Meaning, that if you are able to control your lust and your desires, it's better to be better to be a monk. I wish that everyone were like me, Paul said, meaning a monk.
Thank you, Swami.
Yeah. But if you can't, if it's not time for that in your life, then God has given you another path of a householder so that you can still find your way. You're just going to be doing it in a different way with a different set of responsibilities, but with the same ideals. All right.
Thank you, Swami.
Sure. So the master, he's talking about these several Bengali gentlemen that have entered the room, and after saluting the master, sat down. One of them was already known to Shree Ramakrishna. These gentlemen followed the cult of Tantra. The master knew that one of them indulged in immoral acts in the name of religion. The Tantra rituals, under certain conditions, allow the mixing of men and women devotees. But Sri Ramakrishna regarded all women, even prostitutes, as manifestations of the Divine Mother. He addressed them all as Mother. Master, with a smile, where is Akalananda? My ideal is different from that of Akalananda and his disciples. As for myself, I look on all women as my mother. The visiting gentleman sat silently. Master, every woman is a mother to me. Akalananda used to stay here now and then. He would drink a great deal of consecrated wine. Hearing about my attitude toward women, he stubbornly justified his own views. He insisted again and again, why should you not recognize the attitude of a hero toward women? Won't you admit the injunctions of Shiva? Shiva himself is the author of the Tantra, which prescribes various disciplines, including the heroic. I said to him, but my dear sir, I don't know. I don't like those ideas. To me, every woman is a mother. Right. So he's not saying that the practices of the Tantra are necessarily incorrect. But there is, I don't know, and I mean, I have some ideas around Tantra and some little bit of knowledge. I don't want to jump into it because I haven't deeply studied it, but it's a ritualistic practice, and there's several times in there where you do things of a sexual nature, but in an utterly non-sexual way. Like there's in the Great Master, you read about Sri Ramakrishna's practices, and one of them was, watching a man and a woman have sex and going into samadhi at the same time. It made him think only of the oneness of God. And so it was not a sexual act to him, and he found no sexual gratification from it. And that's how tantric practices are done properly. When they're done improperly, they basically just become sexual practices. But they're meant to really push you beyond that view of things, so that you understand you are not the body, and thereby you are not sexual. You are not the mind, and therefore you are not of lust. That you are different, and apart from that, you are the image of God. Now, all those things have their place in life. Nothing is inherently evil or inherently good. It's always you that makes them what they are, by your motives. If you've got a selfish motive for enjoyment in the situation, it's going to turn out to be vice. But if you have a desire for the betterment of all or for a service of God, those acts will take on a different flavor for you, a different ideal for you. And Ramakrishna is just saying, for him, every woman was his mother, because he was fully aware that he was not body-mind, fully aware that he was not defined by sex. And he says that Tantra is a path, but he says it's kind of taking the servant's door, it's taking the kitchen door into the house. It's not really going in through the front door. And so he was not in favor of those practices, because he felt that they were just really dangerous for normal folks, that they were more likely to abuse those practices than to actually practice them in the right spirit. So he discouraged people from those practices. Akalananda did not support his own children. He said to me, "God will support them." I said nothing, but this is the way I felt about it. Who will support your children? I hope your renunciation of wife and children is not a way of earning money. People will think you are a holy man because you have renounced everything, so they will give you money. In that way, you will earn plenty of money. Spiritual practice with the view of winning a lawsuit and earning money, or to help others win in court and acquire property, shows a very mean understanding, meaning that you're not getting it at all. If your practice of spiritual life is for your own gain, monetarily or materially in this world, whether it's respect or for money or for any number of things, if it's anything but a quest for your own realization and the betterment of the world, then you haven't understood properly, is what he's teaching there. Money enables a man to get food and drink, build a house and worship the deity, to serve devotees and holy men, and to help the poor when he happens to meet them. These are the good uses of money. Money is not meant for luxuries or creatured comforts or for buying a position in society. So money in and of itself is not good or evil. Often people will misquote that saying money is the root of all evil, but it is not. The true quote is the love of money is the root of all evil, right? And really the love of money is the love of ego, because money undefined is just anything to give you what you want. It empowers your desires. It empowers your longings. And so he's making that point again here. People practice various tantric disciplines to acquire supernatural powers. How mean such people are. Krishna said to Arjuna, "Friend, by acquiring one of the 8 siddhis or spiritual powers, you may add a little to your power, but you will not be able to realize me. One cannot get rid of Maya as long as one exercises supernatural powers, and Maya begets egoism." Yes. That's interesting. I often say Maya and ego are synonyms, but Maya actually comes first. Maya begets egoism. So it's the confusion that creates ego. So they're not exactly synonyms. Body and wealth are impermanent. Why go to so much trouble for their sake? Just think of the plight of the Hatha yogis. Their attention is fixed on one ideal only, longevity. They do not aim at the realization of God at all. They practice such exercises as washing out the intestines, drinking milk through a tube, and the like, with one aim in view. There was once a goldsmith whose tongue suddenly turned up and stuck to his palate. He looked like a man in samadhi. He became completely inert and remained so for a long time. People came to worship him. After several years, his tongue suddenly returned to its natural position and he became conscious of things as before. So he went back to his work as a goldsmith. And everybody laughs, which is to say, that if your spiritual life isn't driven from the heart, driven from a love of God, that you can mimic it, you can come across as a very holy person, but you're not getting anywhere. Yes, you're getting some respect. Yes, you're making some money. Yes, blah, blah, blah. But spiritual power, spiritual life, it's meant to see God. It's meant to know truth. And if it's used for anything else, if that's not the driving force in spiritual life, then it's not of much value to you. It's become a problem in and of itself for you. It won't bear its fruit. These are physical things and have nothing to do with God. There was a man who knew 82 postures and talked about yoga samadhi, but inwardly he was drawn to lust and greed. Once he found a banknote worth several thousand rupees. He could not resist the temptation and swallowed it, thinking he would get it out somehow later on. The note was got out of him all right, but he was sent to jail for 3 years. In my guilelessness, I used to think that the man had made great spiritual progress. Really, I say it upon my word. Mahendra Pal of Sinti once gave Ramlal 5 rupees. Ramlal told me about it after he had gone. I asked him what the gift was for, and Ramlal said that it was meant for me. I thought it might enable me to pay off some of my debt for milk. That night I went to bed, and if you will believe me, I suddenly woke up with a pain. I felt as if a cat were scratching inside my chest. I at once went to Ramlal and asked him, "For whom did Mahendra give this money? Was it for your aunt?" "No," said Ramlal, "it was meant for you." I said to him, "Go and return that money at once, or I shall have no peace of mind." Ramlal returned the money early in the morning, and I felt relieved. You see this level of Thakur's purity. His renunciation was so complete that even if somebody without his knowing collected $5 on his behalf, his body reacted, with a pain, like, something's wrong. And he had to go around asking, okay, something's wrong. What has happened that has violated my renunciation, that has violated my integrity? And then he finds out and says, take that money back first thing in the morning, or I will never be at peace. So, good living can happen at a whole level that, I think here in the West, we're not even aware of. That when your body becomes that pure, that anything contrary to your inner convictions will manifest a trouble, will manifest itself in you, and so Thakur had said that he couldn't, like, if you put money in his hand would curl in a weird way, it would cause him pain like that, and so it's something we have to, as we grow in life, we become more and more sensitive to things. That was one of the things that I learned along the way in my own monasticism is, I thought that spiritual life would get easier and easier, that I would knock off my big problems in the first few years and then kind of just coast through. And what I've seen happen instead is that as you become more and more intimately aware and intimately sensitive to your own mind and to your own inner life, that what normally bothered you was going out and doing some act of evil or some act of, something that violated your integrity, and that would bother you. But as you go on in spiritual life, at some point, you're not doing the things anymore. You've at least come that far. But even then, the thought of the things gives you just as much pain as the things themselves once did. And so you're kind of in the same boat all the way along. It's just that you're getting more and more refined inside, and more subtle things, like during the sannyas ceremony, when you're renouncing, you renounce all of the gross material first, and then you renounce the mind and the thoughts of those things. And then there's a third level of renunciation where you're even renouncing the impetus of thought of those things. You're renouncing even the temptation for the mind to go in that direction. And so, this is the task. This is really what we're going after, is to completely purify the body and mind to its intended state, where the movement of God is the movement of your body, and where the thoughts of God are the contents of your mind. That there is no egoism there, very little egoism there. Mother may keep a little bit in there, like she did for M, because she had some work for him to do, like that. But you've got an opportunity here just to completely open yourself up to the divine entirely and be utterly free. Where did I leave off? Once a rich man came here and said to me, "Sir, you must do something so that I may win my lawsuit. I have heard of your reputation, and so I have come here." "My dear sir," I said to him, "you've made a great mistake. I am not the person you are looking for. A Kalananda is your man." A true devotee of God does not care for such things as wealth or health. He thinks, why should I practice spiritual austerity for creature comforts, for money or name and fame? These are all impermanent. They last only a day or two. This is him repeating our inner discernment. This is how we break our attachments to everything, is by going and understanding that it's a vicious cycle. That when you fulfill a desire, it leaves seeds for the next desire. And that once you start giving into desires, it's a wheel that just goes faster and faster and faster. There's no way out. And so we have to stop by saying, look, discern, look closely at what you're doing in your life. Are you looking for things that are going to disappear when you die? Are you looking for things that are going to decay in front of your eyes? Go out and spend that big money on that car, and then over the next 40 years, watch it become a jalopy, a broken down piece of something, and it's the same for all of those things. I used to do this when I felt desire for a person. I would always add 50 years to their age and say, is that still what you want? Because that's what you're getting as well. And you begin to understand these temporary things, the temporary nature of this world, that the world can't give you anything. We get a very big teaching on that just by being born. You come into this world naked with nothing. And how do you leave? Naked with nothing. Even if they bury you in clothes, you eventually end up naked and nothing. It's like, and so if you come in naked with nothing and you go out naked with nothing, how did you arrive at the conclusion that this life was about gaining something, about getting something, if you're not allowed to take anything? How did you think that it was about that? Vivekananda says there's only one thing that goes to the grave with you, and that is your virtue. Which means all your spiritual progress goes with you through the grave to your next life. So you don't lose anything in that sense, the spiritual things. He thinks, why should I practice spiritual austerities for creature comforts, money, or name and fame? These are all impermanent. They last only a day or two. The visiting gentleman took leave of the master after saluting him. When they had departed, Sri Ramakrishna smiled and said to M, "You can never make a thief listen to religion." Well, what do you think of Narendra? M, oh, he is splendid. Master, yes. His intelligence is as great as his learning. Besides, he is gifted in music, both as a singer and a player. Then, too, he has control over his passions. He says he will never marry. M, you once said that one who constantly talks of his sin really becomes a sinner. He cannot extricate himself from sin. But if a man has firm faith that he is the Son of God, then he makes rapid strides in spiritual life. This is complete, Jesus. Of course, if I read the word Son of God, I immediately have to think of Jesus. But, we are all sons of God through Christ Jesus who loved us. It's like, if you really see yourself as a direct relative of the divine, as one bearing the image of God within you, you will not long for any of those things of the material world. The body and mind, you will know that it's passing. Good Lord, look at ourselves in the mirror. You can see it beginning to fall off its frame already. As it slowly melts, your hair whitens, and then all these little blemishes start to become characters in and of themselves on your body as you watch everything reaching for the ground as you grow old. There's two ways to grow old. One is to believe that you're the body and suffer. Oh my God, I'm dying. I'm growing old. This is horrible. And the other is to know that you are not the body, that you have nothing to do with the body, that you are divine, and you laugh yourself to the grave. Like Sri Nisargadatta says, he says the sinner leaves the world weeping because he's losing everything that he enjoyed and everything that he wanted and everything that he worked for. But the saint leaves the world laughing, knowing that he's going home, knowing that finally he's breaking the bounds of the limits of the senses, the limits of the mind, and is now able to soar with spontaneous, infinite being, spontaneous, infinite wisdom forever. So there's two ways to live. One will make you weep your way into the grave, and the other will make you laugh your way into the grave. Master, yes, faith. What tremendous faith Krishna Kishore had. He used to say, I have spoken the name of God once. That is enough. How can I remain a sinner? I have become pure and stainless. One day, Haladari said, even Ajamila had to perform austerities to gratify God. Can one receive the grace of God without austerities? What will one gain by speaking the name of Narayana only once? At these remarks, Krishna Kishore's anger knew no bounds. The next time he came to this garden to pick flowers, he would not even look at Haladari. Yeah, to have that kind of faith, that is what grace is growing in us. If you had the faith in grace, if you understood grace, if you understood what the divine has done for you and is doing for you, you could not in any way bring yourself to act against it. You simply couldn't do it. Just because the nature of the love that grace produces in you would never, ever allow you to think negatively or to hurt anything. And so this is why that acceptance of grace is so important, and why the probing of your internal self is so important, so that you understand what grace is. You understand when you're confronted with a mind that will not let go of its desires, will not let go of its passions, will not behave itself, and just holds you underwater, even though you're desperately trying to be free and to breathe. And then Mother shows grace. She lets you let go. She lets you separate. She lets you be free. And you come up and you take that deep breath of air, that divine freedom. You'll never again want to put your head under that water. This is the meaning of grace. This is what the divine love produces by nature within us. an incredible strength, an incredible burning inspiration, so that just like what this man Haladhari is saying, I've uttered the name of God once, and because I meant it, and because my whole self uttered that name, there was no division in my mind or my heart as I uttered that name. I'm free and pure forever. You know, that's why Holy Mother says to you, you can have your realization this very moment if you want it. And that's the trouble, you know, and most of us will sit here and say, but I do want it. But that's because you're living in the top 1/8 inch of your mind. And that top 1/8 inch might be in line with what you desire at this moment. But there's all kinds of stuff down in there that we're not even aware of because we don't spend our time internally. We're not aware of the internal world. And so we don't know what prayers the mind is making throughout the day. You know, we're not aware of what prayer our actions are indicating throughout the day. So that's why our first step in spiritual life is becoming aware of awareness, becoming aware of what our mind is doing, becoming aware of our identity with mind and body. Because once you become aware, then you will feel like Haladhari is feeling. Once you become aware that you are not these things, you're like, well, then why in the world have I spent so much suffering chasing after them? What what a waste of time all of that was. All right. Gosh, it's 8:02. Well, we'll stop there. He's going to talk about Haladhari's father. We'll hit that next week.